Have you ever stared into a bamboo grove and felt as though something inside was staring back at you? What if a single glance was enough to attract something that would follow you home, make you sick for days, pull your soul from your body, and try to lure you toward death? Tonight's stories come from people who have spent their lives encountering things they could never explain, from mysterious women hiding in bamboo groves, to terrifying out-of-body experiences, to spirits that seem determined to claim a life in exchange for their own. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, these are experiences that left scars on the people who lived through them. Let's begin. The first story took place in a rural area of Ben Tre province. The storyteller said that she had lived there since childhood without ever experiencing anything unusual. Everything remained normal until she was in the 8th grade. That summer vacation would become the beginning of a series of terrifying supernatural experiences. One afternoon, she went out to play with several girls in the neighborhood. By the time she returned home, it was already around 6 o'clock in the evening. After greeting her parents, she went straight inside to take a bath. In front of her house stood a large bamboo grove. For as long as she could remember, every time she walked past it, she felt uncomfortable. She always had the strange feeling that something was hiding inside. Unfortunately, the path leading home required her to pass directly by the grove every day. That evening, for reasons she still couldn't explain, she stopped and stared into the bamboo grove for a long moment before finally continuing home. It was after that evening that everything began. 2 days later, she suddenly developed a high fever. The illness became severe. She was taken to hospitals, given medication, and treated in various ways, but nothing seemed to help. Day after day, she remained bedridden. Several more days passed before her condition improved slightly. One afternoon, she was lying in a hammock beside her father. Without warning, she heard someone call her name. The voice called once, then twice, then a third time. Han! 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 The moment she heard the third call, it felt as though she lost awareness of everything around her. Then something impossible happened. She felt her soul leave her body. Suddenly, she found herself floating through the air. She drifted toward the bamboo grove. The world around her looked different. The water channels near her house had disappeared. Instead, they had become smooth roads stretching into the distance. She felt as though she were under some kind of hypnosis. The mysterious voice continued guiding her forward. When she reached the bamboo grove, she saw a woman standing inside. The woman was extremely large and overweight. Her face appeared blurry, almost impossible to see clearly. The girl felt completely powerless. Whatever the woman wanted, she felt compelled to obey. The woman pointed toward a hen sitting nearby and incubating eggs. Then she spoke. "That hen is the reason your mother keeps losing money. That hen is the reason your family is suffering. You need to kill it." When she heard those words, something inside her immediately accepted them as truth. She remembered how difficult things had been recently. Her mother's business had been failing. Everything seemed to result in losses. The family had struggled financially for months. Under the woman's influence, the explanation suddenly felt reasonable. Without hesitation, she rushed toward the hen. The bird panicked and ran. She chased after it, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't catch it. The hen moved far too quickly. Then the woman handed her a stone. The girl later said the rock appeared enormous, perhaps weighing hundreds of kilograms. Yet somehow it felt lighter than foam. She lifted it effortlessly, holding the massive stone above her head. She continued chasing the hen. Finally, she threw it. The rock struck one of the hen's legs. The bird stumbled. She prepared to run forward and kill it. But at that exact moment, another voice suddenly broke through. Far away, she heard someone shouting, "What's wrong with you? Wake up." It was her father, back in the real world. Her father had noticed something strange. She was lying in the hammock, drenched in sweat. Her body twitched and jerked as though she were trapped in a nightmare. Terrified, he shook her repeatedly. After several attempts, she finally opened her eyes. When she woke up, she was soaked with sweat. Her father asked what had happened. At first, she couldn't speak. It felt as though her mouth no longer worked. Only after several minutes was she able to tell her parents everything. Her mother became frightened immediately. The following Sunday, they took her to see a spiritual practitioner. After listening carefully, the man nodded. Then he explained something disturbing. According to him, when she had stopped beside the bamboo grove a few days earlier, something had noticed her. Something had become interested in her. The practitioner claimed that because she had been born in the year of the rooster, a spirit was attempting to use a chicken as part of a ritual to take her life and replace its own fate. After completing several rituals, he gave her a blessed necklace and instructed her to wear it constantly. From that day forward, the overweight woman never appeared again. However, the practitioner gave her family one more warning. This land is not good. You shouldn't continue living here. Sell the property and move somewhere else. Her father didn't believe him. Later, they consulted several other spiritual practitioners. Surprisingly, every one of them gave the same answer. The land itself was considered spiritually troubled. Eventually, the family moved away and went to live with her grandmother. For about a year, everything seemed peaceful. Then another terrifying incident occurred. More than a year later, she returned home to visit her father and grandmother. At the time, she had been working away from home and had come back for an extended stay. Nothing unusual happened during the first few weeks. Then one afternoon, while taking a nap, she suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure on her body. She opened her eyes. A terrifying man was sitting on top of her. His expression was filled with rage. Both hands were wrapped tightly around her throat. He squeezed harder and harder. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. She genuinely believed she was about to die. Desperate, she began silently reciting Buddhist prayers. After what felt like an eternity, the figure finally released her. The moment he let go, she woke up completely. Looking at the clock, she realized she had only been asleep for about 90 minutes. That night, even stranger things began to happen. That night, she stayed up late scrolling through her phone as usual. After a while, she became tired and finally put the phone aside to sleep. She had barely begun drifting off when she heard strange noises coming from the front of the house. The sounds were faint at first. Curious, she got out of bed and walked outside to investigate. As she approached the family altar, she froze. What she saw nearly stopped her heart. Her father was slowly climbing onto the altar. He moved in an unnatural way, step by step, until he was sitting on top of it. For several seconds, she simply stared. Her mind refused to process what she was seeing. Then she rushed forward. "Dad, what are you doing?" But her father didn't answer. Instead, he slowly turned his head toward her. His eyes were wide open. The expression on his face was filled with hatred. The sight terrified her. Instinctively, she turned around and tried to run back to her room. The moment she spun around, she found herself face to face with a woman. The woman wore a bright red traditional dress. The color was so vivid it almost seemed to glow in the darkness. The storyteller immediately began reciting prayers. She knew something was terribly wrong. Startled, she stumbled backward and fell hard onto the floor. As she lay there, she watched the woman in red slowly retreat. Instead of turning around and walking away, the woman moved backward while continuing to face her. Step by step, slowly, silently, the storyteller kept praying. Eventually, she managed to get back on her feet and sprinted toward her bedroom. Her heart pounded wildly. Nothing about the situation made sense anymore. She reached the room and slammed the door shut. Then she looked up. The woman in red was already inside, standing in the corner, waiting. The room was dark, but she could clearly see the woman's eyes. They glowed brightly like the eyes of an animal at night. The woman simply stared. She never spoke. She never moved. She only watched, terrified beyond words. The storyteller sat frozen and continued praying. After some time, the woman suddenly vanished. Then she heard another voice. This voice belonged to a young woman. The voice sounded gentle and calm. "Don't be afraid. Everything will be okay. I need to leave for a little while. But don't go anywhere. You must stay right here. That woman is coming. I'll be back soon." The voice disappeared. Moments later, the woman in red appeared again. This time she was smiling. The smile was horrible. It wasn't friendly. It was a mocking smile, a smile filled with malice. The storyteller immediately closed her eyes and continued praying. After several minutes, the woman disappeared once more. At that point, she couldn't endure it any longer. She rushed toward the bedroom door. The moment she opened it, she saw her father sitting calmly outside, drinking tea. Everything looked normal, too normal. "Dad," she called out repeatedly. Her father didn't react. She shouted again. Still nothing. Confused, she walked closer. She reached out and touched his shoulder. Her hand passed directly through his body. She felt nothing. No contact. No resistance. It was as though he wasn't physically there. A wave of terror swept through her. She looked down at herself. Her body appeared transparent, like a shadow, like mist. Only then did she realize something horrifying. She was no longer inside her body. She had somehow left it. Panicking, she rushed back into her bedroom. There, lying on the bed, was her physical body, motionless, asleep. She knew immediately what had happened. Her soul had separated from her body. Now she desperately needed to return. The problem was that she had no idea how. She stood beside the bed staring at herself, trying to think, trying to figure out what to do. Then she felt someone tap her shoulder from behind. She spun around. A dark-skinned man stood there. He looked old and mysterious. The man spoke calmly. "Come with me. That woman has taken your soul. I'll help you get it back." Having no other option, she followed him. Together they traveled down unfamiliar roads. Then she noticed something strange. Behind them was a large pack of black dogs. Dozens of them. The animals ran after them relentlessly. She had no idea why. The sight was deeply unsettling. As if that wasn't enough, Another figure appeared behind the dogs. It was a cyclo driver. The old-fashioned three-wheel bicycle taxi rolled silently down the road. The driver stared at her. Then, without saying a word, he disappeared. Moments later, the black dogs vanished as well. The entire scene felt surreal. Unable to contain her curiosity, she finally asked the mysterious man beside her a question. Earlier, I kept calling my father. Why couldn't he hear me? The man stopped walking. Then he turned around. A strange smile appeared on his face. It wasn't a comforting smile. It was unsettling, almost lifeless. Then he said, "Because you're already dead." The moment she heard those words, terror exploded through her entire body. She jerked awake instantly. Her eyes flew open. She found herself back in bed. Her clothes were soaked with sweat. Her body felt as though she had been submerged in water. Beside her sat her father. He was trying to comfort her. He insisted that she had simply experienced a nightmare. But even now, she still doesn't know whether it was only a dream, or whether her soul truly left her body that night. Afterward, her father placed mulberry branches beneath her pillow and near the bedroom door. From then on, she recited prayers every night before sleeping. Thankfully, the terrifying experiences never returned. The second story comes from another listener who described herself as someone with an extremely weak spiritual constitution. She often wondered whether she had done something terrible in a previous life, because strange encounters seemed to follow her wherever she went. When she was young, she had a close friend named Ms. V. The two girls spent nearly every day together. They often played outside until sunset. The village where they lived contained many old graves. Most of them had existed for generations. One evening, before heading home, the two girls decided to play beneath a large pine tree. At the time, they were still very young. All they cared about was having fun. As darkness gradually fell, Ms. V's mother came to call her home for dinner. Ms. V left immediately. The storyteller, however, became so absorbed in playing that she forgot her friend had already gone. She remained beneath the tree alone. Night continued falling. The area grew darker and darker. Eventually, she heard someone speaking behind the pine tree. Naturally, she assumed it was Ms. V. Without even turning around, she replied. The conversation continued, back and forth. She chatted happily with whoever was behind the tree. Years later, she would realize something chilling. The person speaking to her could not have been Ms. V, because Ms. V had already gone home long before. The next morning, when she asked her friend about it, Ms. V confirmed that she had left immediately after her mother arrived. That meant the storyteller had been talking to someone or something else. Not long afterward, she became seriously ill. For 2 weeks, she remained bedridden with a high fever. Her parents eventually called a spiritual practitioner to help. After various rituals, she recovered. Not long after that, the pine tree was cut down. Years passed. Eventually, she enrolled in a boarding school located far from home. For the first week, everything seemed normal. Then strange things started happening. One Sunday, during a school cleaning session, workers removed a damaged window located beside her bed. That night, for no particular reason, she decided to sleep with her head positioned opposite from her roommates. The decision would prove unforgettable. Around midnight, she felt something tapping her head. Tap, tap, tap. The sensation was similar to someone lightly striking her with a ballpoint pen. It wasn't painful, just incredibly annoying. She opened her eyes. Immediately, she sensed that someone had entered the room. Then she saw it, a dark figure. The figure walked slowly around the room. As it moved, it emitted a horrifying scream, a long, unnatural sound. What made the experience even worse was that nobody else seemed able to hear it. The figure continued circling the room. Eventually, it stopped at the foot of her bed. At that moment, she understood. She was dealing with something supernatural again. She was terrified. She wanted to scream, but fear had completely paralyzed her. The next morning, she told the other students what had happened. Nobody believed her. Unfortunately, the encounters continued every single night, always around the same hour. The spirit returned. It tapped her head repeatedly, night after night, week after week. She begged her mother to let her transfer schools. Her mother refused. She believed the boarding school offered better educational opportunities. As a result, the girl remained there. Every evening she cried. Every evening she dreaded going to sleep. Desperate, she began sleeping secretly in other students' rooms. Interestingly, whenever she slept elsewhere, the spirit didn't appear. But school regulations prohibited students from changing rooms. Eventually, she was forced to return to her assigned bed. She tried placing various herbs and protective items around her sleeping area. Nothing worked. The spirit always came back. Finally, she arranged a move to the upper bunk of a bunk bed. The first few nights seemed peaceful. Then she sensed something climbing toward her. It felt as though the spirit was trying to reach her, but couldn't quite make it. Several nights later, however, it succeeded. She felt it climb onto the upper bunk. She felt it sit beside her. Sometimes it yanked away her blanket. She always slept completely covered, but somehow the blanket would still be pulled away from her body. The experiences became relentless. Even when the spirit stopped pulling the blanket, she could still feel it standing near her head. Sometimes it sat at the foot of the bed, watching, waiting. Her health deteriorated badly. Her grades suffered. Eventually, her family found a spiritual practitioner who was able to help. After treatment, the hauntings finally stopped. Even so, she later learned something disturbing about the school grounds. According to teachers and local residents, before the dormitory had been built, workers had unearthed disturbing things while excavating the land. Many strange incidents reportedly occurred there. People often heard knocking on doors at night. When they opened the doors, nobody was there. Students frequently reported hearing children crying in the darkness. The stories continued for years. Eventually, she graduated and left. Later, she attended another boarding school in a different province. Thankfully, the supernatural disturbances were much less severe. However, she still occasionally experienced episodes where she would wake up unable to move. Her body felt extremely heavy. She remained fully conscious but couldn't speak or call for help. The episodes usually occurred in the early afternoon while she was napping. Even today, while continuing her studies, she still experiences those moments from time to time. Fortunately, nothing as terrifying as her earlier encounters has ever returned. And with that, these stories come to an end. Whether they were encounters with spirits, vivid nightmares, or something science has yet to explain, the people who experienced them remain convinced that what happened felt completely real. And perhaps that is the most frightening part of all.